Jack, don't even open that up.
No, let's listen to the announcement.
In 2024, Rookie of the Year goes to Victor Wembanyama of the San Antonio Spurs.
In his third NBA season, Victor Wembanyama put up a stat line that had never been recorded in the history of professional basketball. 35 points, 10 rebounds, 5 assists, 5 blocks, multiple threes, not by a rookie, not by a veteran, not by anyone, ever. And the scary part? It was starting to feel normal. That's the situation the NBA is in right now. Not just dealing with a great player or even a generational talent, but something that doesn't fit any existing category. And to understand how we got here, you have to go back to before he ever played a single NBA minute. Most elite prospects get hyped on American high school courts, then tested in college. Wembanyama's path was different. He was developing in France, playing against grown professionals while most of his peers were still in high school. At 7'4" with a wingspan approaching 8 feet, the assumption from the outside was that he'd play like most players built that way. Protect the rim, finish inside, stay near the paint. Instead, he was bringing the ball up the court, taking step-back threes, crossing defenders, then sprinting back to block shots at the rim in the same possession. Players that size are not supposed to move like that. When he started facing international competition at an elite level, NBA players who watched the footage stopped treating it as distant scouting interest. Kevin Durant said the league was in trouble. LeBron James called him an alien. Giannis Antetokounmpo admitted he had never seen anything like it. When players at that level say things like that, it means something different than usual hype. By the time the draft arrived, it wasn't a competition. It was a coronation. The San Antonio Spurs got the pick, and everyone already knew what was coming. The NBA debut was solid, but not spectacular. Around 15 points, some flashes, the kind of performance you'd expect from someone still finding their footing. For a moment, it looked like the adjustment period was going to slow things down the way it does for most rookies. Then came Phoenix. 38 points, 10 rebounds, confidence and shot-making at a level that doesn't usually show up from first-year players. That game didn't just silence the early skeptics, it changed the entire framing of what people were watching. By the end of his rookie season, the numbers looked like this: over 20 points per game, around 10 rebounds, more than 3 blocks a night. He led the entire NBA in blocks, not just rookies, the whole league, becoming the youngest player ever to do it. He recorded the first 20-point, 20-rebound game ever by a player his age, and then came the stat that stopped everyone cold. He became the first player in NBA history to combine 500 points, 250 blocks, and 100 made threes in a single season. Not the first rookie, the first player ever. The awards followed. Unanimous Rookie of the Year, First Team All-Defense, runner-up for Defensive Player of the Year. The Spurs still finished near the bottom of the standings, and normally that context would soften the narrative. But anyone watching closely understood that the team's record was irrelevant to what was actually being evaluated. Something was forming that went beyond wins and losses. Year 2 is where it got harder. Defenses had a full season of film. They adjusted. Earlier double teams, more physical play in the post, forcing him into contested jumpers. For a few weeks, his rhythm slowed and his efficiency dipped. This is the moment that separates players who have potential from players who actually develop. The league had figured something out. The question was whether he'd figure back. He dropped 50 points in a single game, multiple threes, a near 5x5 stat line, something only a handful of players in basketball history have ever recorded more than once. The adjustment stopped working almost as fast as they started. What made his defensive impact genuinely different was what happened even when he didn't block the shot. Shots that typically go in at 65 to 70% at the rim dropped significantly when he was nearby. Guards hesitated on drives. Big men rushed their releases. Entire offensive game plans were built around not going toward him, which meant he was altering possessions he wasn't even directly involved in. That's a level of defensive control the league has almost never had to account for. Then, without warning, it stopped. Doctors discovered a blood clot issue. The season ended early, and for the first time since he entered the league, the conversation shifted away from what he could do and toward whether his body would let him do it long enough to matter. This is where history is genuinely uncomfortable. Greg Oden entered the league looking like a generational big man. Injuries never let that story unfold. Zion Williamson showed glimpses of something special, but has spent more time managing his availability than building toward consistency. Derrick Rose reached MVP at 22 and then watched injuries rewrite everything that came after. The pattern is real, and it applies with particular frequency to players built around size and athleticism. Wembanyama is 7'4". The concern isn't irrational. That uncertainty sat over everything as he rehabbed. For the first time, people weren't asking how great he could become. They were asking whether he'd get the chance to find out. When he came back, he didn't look cautious. He looked better. The Spurs had made moves in the meantime, not a superstar lineup, but players who could space the floor, handle pressure, and take some of the creation burden off him. For the first time in his NBA career, he didn't have to manufacture everything himself. He could be selective, and when he chose his spots, defenses had no answer. Opening night of Year 3, 40-plus points, double-digit rebounds, complete control. It wasn't a statement game in the marketing sense. It was just the natural result of what he had become. The stat lines that followed genuinely had no historical precedent. That 35-point, 10-rebound, 5-assist, 5-block, multiple three combination wasn't a one-time outlier. It became a recurring possibility on any given night. Then came the moment that defined the season. Late game, tight score. Spurs down by 1, under 10 seconds. The entire arena knew who was taking the shot. He isolated one dribble, a fadeaway jumper from distance, and it went in. San Antonio's 6-year playoff drought ended on that shot. That's a different kind of evidence than statistics. Statistics show production. That moment showed something about who he is when everything is on the line. The GOAT conversation starting this early feels premature, and it should be treated carefully. There's only one modern precedent for a player who arrived with this level of expectation and actually met it: LeBron James. From high school to 2 decades of dominance, LeBron delivered on everything people imagined. That's the standard, and it's an extraordinarily high one that almost no one in history has reached. What makes Wembanyama's situation genuinely different from the other comparisons that get thrown around is that he's not just meeting expectations in one area. He's doing it on both ends of the floor simultaneously, in ways that don't have historical equivalents. The archetype itself is new. You can't point to the player he's most similar to because that player doesn't exist yet. At the same time, he's still 23 years old. 3 NBA seasons in. The blood clot scare was real, and the durability question it raised doesn't disappear because he came back healthy. The players who ended up as cautionary tales also look like this at certain points in their careers. History doesn't stop being relevant just because the current evidence looks different. What actually separates this story, what makes it worth watching with a different level of attention, is that the early arc is tracking in a direction almost no prospect in history has managed to follow. Not just good, not just great. Something that required inventing new frameworks to describe it. Whether that continues for 5 more years or 15 is the question nobody can answer yet. But the player the league is dealing with right now in Year 3 is already something it has never had to prepare for before. And he's still developing, still adding strength, still learning angles and reads and efficiency gains that haven't fully arrived yet. That's the part that should concern the rest of the league more than any stat line already posted. What he is right now is unprecedented. What he becomes from here is the question that makes this the most interesting story in basketball. How far do you think this actually goes? MVP, championship, all-time conversation? Drop your take below. More breakdowns on the players and moments that are changing the game right now.